Okay, I am back today. I took a few days off because I had to work a bunch of shifts over the weekend, but we are back now with the full spoilers for the Pit of Snakes pack. So I will review the cards in this pack and then I'll try to upload a gameplay video for today as well. So let's get right into it with these new cards. We have a Pit of Snakes, the card title of the pack. A loyal Martell 2-cost event. Challenges action. Choose a character with no challenge icons and put a poison token on it. And then at the end of the phase, kill that character if it still has the poison token. Which again, there's no actual way to remove a poison token that I know of besides removing the character from play entirely. Like either Skagos or just bouncing them back to hand or something. I guess the 7-cost mace could do it, but then they won't even be in play at the end of the phase either way. They don't come back into play until the next phase. Basically, it's like a kill event that Martell can do. And I'm not sure. My first inclination is that it won't be good and it won't be used, and that's because Tears of Lees does not see a lot of use. And Tears of Lees is like 1 gold less and only requires you to remove 1 icon or potentially 0 icons if the character doesn't have an intrigue icon to start with. And you could say, with Tears of Lees you have to win an intrigue challenge as the attacking player, but Martell doesn't usually have a very hard time doing that if you're playing icon removal to start with. So if that type of spot removal was really that effective, then I would expect to see a lot more Tears of Lees, and I just don't see it very often. So I don't think a Pit of Snakes will really see much use either. But it does have some potential as a fun card. I think it's playable at least if you go for like a icon removal deck. And then we have the new version of REM Martell, which is 6 cost with Shadow 5 and Stealth. And she is loyal, she's a lady, and she has reaction. After a card comes out of shadows under your control, choose a character. Until the end of the phase, that character loses a challenge icon of your choice. So, I'm not sure how to feel about this card. I think it's obviously playable in just any sort of Martell Shadows deck. I think I'll probably end up trying to play it whenever I play a Martell Shadows deck, whenever that day comes. I don't know that she'll see much general use, though, because what people always end up doing with Martell is going back to the same lame strategy based around spamming resets. And large, expensive characters like this just don't lend themselves very well to that strategy. So I don't expect her to see any play in your typical Martell deck just because of her cost. But I think she's probably very usable as like a fun card if you're not doing that type of standard Martell garbage. Hands of Gold. This is a 2-cost loyal Lannister event. After you win an intrigue challenge by 5 or more strength as the attacking player, choose a character controlled by the losing opponent and return it to hand, 1 per challenge. So this is sort of like an alternative to Pinch of Powder, I guess. It's 1 less gold than Pinch of Powder, and only on intrigue. So, yeah, it's hard to think of how this is really better or different from Pinch. And I think Pinch, honestly, is probably better because it's 1 additional gold in exchange for the effect being repeatable or being intrigue or power, I think is worth it probably. So it's a bit unfortunate to see a loyal card like this that doesn't really compare that well to a neutral card that you were able to play anyways. And since Pinch sees basically no play, I don't expect this to see much play either. But, who knows? I could be wrong. Obviously, you could try to put it in a Reigns deck if you wanted to be spicy. But yeah, my prediction is not particularly good or worthwhile. We have Chiswick, 3-cost loyal Lannister character, 2 strength, military, and intrigue with pillage and reaction. After you win a challenge in which he's participating, discard the top card of your deck to draw 1 card. So basically Maester Pycelle, but with military instead of power. And theoretically he has pillage and he also pillages your deck for whatever that's worth. Which, if you're playing like the Lannister green site mill deck, obviously, he goes in that deck and he's kind of cool. And he has a little bit of synergy with like Fleabottom and Sir Kevin Lannister with that ability, so that's nice, I guess. I think he's a solid one of in every Lannister deck. Well, maybe not every, but very playable Lannister character. Because, like I said, he's basically just Pycelle with a military icon, and that's totally fine. New version of Eddard Stark, 7 cost, 6 strength, military power, and renown, and dominance action. If each character you control has the Stark affiliation, kneel Eddard Stark to choose and kill a character with printed cost 4 or lower, limit once per phase. And he is loyal. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. Yeah, I don't know how to. I don't think this card will see a lot of play because Sir Ilyn Payne does not see a lot of play, and I sort of compare him to Sir Ilyn Payne. I think he is better than Sir Ilyn Payne, but not by much. The kill effect is delayed by a round, and he costs 1 more gold. Although he is a little bit better of a character if you're using him in challenges instead of using his ability. But you would never really use him in challenges. I mean, the 6 cost version of Eddard is obviously better if you're just trying to get renown. The attraction of this card is this dominance action. And the fact that everything has to have the Stark affiliation, I don't know. I don't like the ward type of decks don't seem that prevalent in Stark right now, but I think if you were going for the board removal Stark, you could play him. I don't think that that will be like the most popular type of deck. I don't think that he will buff it enough, but he's probably playable if you wanted to do that. I guess you could also combo him with like Northern Armory and then Skagos and Rob or the Jon Snow that stands people or something to get multiple kills out of him. Maybe that's good. I don't know, I'm a little up in the air. We'll see. Guard Duty. This is 1 cost Night's Watch attachment. Condition, Night's Watch character only. Reaction, after attached character is declared as a defender, kneel Guard Duty to stand attached character. So many Night's Watch characters can't even have this attached to them because there are no attachments except weapon. And this would be bad even if that wasn't the case. So this is definitely unplayable. Jonnnington, 6 cost House Targaryen Lord with Shadow 5 and Renown. Reaction, after Jonnnington comes out of Shadows, choose and reveal a card you control in Shadows. If it is a non-event card with printed cost 4 or lower, put it into play. Someone pointed this out in Discord, and I agree. I don't understand why you would ever reveal a card you control in Shadows with Jonnnington that you're not going to put into play. Like, I can't imagine any advantage to ever doing that. So I feel like the reaction should have just read, after Jonnnington comes out of Shadows, choose a non-event card with printing cost 4 or lower you control in Shadows and put it into play. Like, the wording is weird. So he's basically a sort of different version of Aegon, I guess. I don't know, he's a card for a Shadows deck, that's what I should be trying to say, and he's non-loyal, so he can go in like the Kingdom of Shadows agenda when that comes up. Basically, you put him in Shadows decks. But I think you have to be going pretty heavy on Shadows for him to get his worth. I think he is efficient if you're likely to have a 3 or 4 cost target for him to put into play, but otherwise probably not really worth it. So sort of a specialized card. Speaking of specialized cards, we have the King's Landing Proselyte, which is a ally Drowned God, Greyjoy character, 4 strength, and Shadow 4. Action, kill a standing Greyjoy character to put King's Landing Proselyte into play from Shadows. So this could either go in Shadows decks, or it could go into Drowned God. I don't know that Drowned God plus Shadows will ever be a thing, but if it is, this card will definitely help power it. I think he's probably good in Drowned God decks, because he gives you a more reliable way to kill your own characters, and you get a 4 strength into play for 2 gold. Probably goes in Drowned God decks for sure. And again, I don't know if Greyjoy Shadows is ever a thing, but maybe if it is, you can play this, because you can just like kill a Drowned God fanatic or something to put him in, and then you can, I guess, get a Shadow trigger. I don't know that Greyjoy has any cards that trigger off things coming out of Shadows. But maybe he's good, who knows. I guess this is the Greyjoy 4 cost 2 icons, do something to put it into play from Shadows card for the cycle. Now we have Maester Gorman, Tyrell Maester, 4 cost, Intrigue and Power, Strength 2. You may look at the top card of your deck. Once per phase, if the top card of your deck is a non-Tyrell card, You may marshal or play it as if it were in your hand. This is a card for Conclave, I think. I think it only goes in Conclave, but it's probably pretty good in Conclave. Because in Conclave, you have the unique ability to put this guy and maybe one or two other Tyrell Maesters into the deck, if even that. He might be, you could easily just have him as the only Tyrell card in your whole deck in Conclave. And then his ability is guaranteed to be active. And he gives you some pretty nice card advantage, I think, in that case. And sort of justifies the 4 cost for 2 strength. And most significantly, he has a useful ability that does not require him to kneel. So the thing with Conclave is a lot of these Maesters kneel to use their abilities. So it's like if you're kneeling them to use their abilities, then you're not using them to trigger your Conclave agenda. But this guy doesn't have that problem. So I think he's only for Conclave, but probably pretty decent in that deck. Next we have Maester Mullen, a Night's Watch Maester, 2 cost, 1 strength, military and intrigue. And action, kneel Maester Mullen to choose a character and a challenge type. Until the end of the phase, that character cannot be declared as an attacker in challenges of that type. So this seems like a really good card. 2 cost and 2 icons is already quite decent. And then the action is obviously has a lot of powerful uses. I mean, it's like we've seen how powerful Craven is, and this isn't quite as powerful as Craven, but it's still pretty damn good. And the fact that it's also a body is definitely a bonus. It's pretty cheap at only 2 gold. I think he's at least a one of in probably every Night's Watch deck. And again, another definite option for Conclave. Even though he does kneel to use his ability, I think he's probably good enough that you don't mind just putting him in Conclave decks. I mean, the utility of this is so much. There's there's so many obvious ways that you could use this that would screw people up. Then we have Malians Tome, a Stark 2-cost attachment with Shadow 1. Attached character gains an intrigue icon. After you win a challenge in which attached character is attacking, look at the losing opponent's hand. If attached character is Eddard Stark or has the Maester trait, stand it. Limit once per phase. So maybe you can put this in like Cohort and use it with the 6-cost Eddard Stark, and then you can use that stand ability to get the 6-cost Eddard's ability twice and claim like 4 power or something. I guess that could be decent. It also makes him into 3 icons. So maybe that's a thing for like Stark Cohort. I think you probably want to use it in Cohort if you're going to try to use it for that, since it's not very useful if you aren't getting that stand ability out of it. So that way, if you don't have the Eddard Stark to put it on, you can just like sacrifice it with Cohort to get something else that would actually be useful. And maybe it goes in Conclave decks. Again, I'm iffy on that because most of these Maesters aren't very powerful in challenges. There's almost 0 Maesters. There's like literally one I can think of that has more than 1 strength. So standing Maesters after they win a challenge, I don't know if it's really that good. But it might be worth it as like a one-of in a Conclave deck, like Stark Conclave, I guess. We'll see. We have Manning the City Walls, a new city plot, 4116, city and war traits, and when revealed, put a non-unique character with printed cost 3 or lower into play from your hand, printed cost 6 or lower instead if there's a city card in your use pile. I kind of like what they're doing with these city plots compared to First Edition. In First Edition, all the city plots had abilities that gained in strength incrementally based on how many city plots were in the used pile. So I believe there was one that would let you kneel a character with cost equal to the number of city plots in your used pile, which obviously could become very powerful, but you had to play like only city plots. So if you like started playing even a couple city plots, it was kind of an all or nothing thing. Like you had to fully commit to the city plots in order for them to really be worth using. But the way that they're doing it here in 2nd edition, you could just throw this one in on top of At the Gates, and you don't have to run any other city plots. You can go with just those 2, and this gets the full use out of its ability. I also like that the ability is encouraging like the use of specific cards, and some cards that traditionally have been pretty difficult to use, which is high-cost non-uniques. First of all, because they just die to resets, they can't be protected by duplicates or bodyguards like unique characters can, but also because they're hard to pay for because they can't be discounted by Great Halls, which is, or like a noble cause or anything like that, which has also been a problem with using big, expensive, non-unique characters, and this plot could potentially help to make them more playable. You can also imagine revealing this if you know that the opponent is going to play Valar Morghulis, and then you put like a 5 or 6 cost character into play on top of a 4 gold plot. That could be potentially powerful. I don't think it quite makes the cut because plot space is just too tight, but I think it's playable as a funsies plot if you wanted to do like, Dothraki with raiding Khazars and the 5 cost army that goes up to 10 if you have no cards in hand and things like that. Maybe it's usable then. We have outfitted for war, 0 cost weapon attachment for Greyjoy, warship location only, action during a military challenge, kneel attached location to give a participating Greyjoy character +3 strength until the end of the challenge. This is extremely useless, never play it. There's no reason to ever use this instead of Iron Fleet Scout. Sir Eldon Estermont, 5 cost Baratheon loyal character, knight and lord, and 4 strength with these 2 icons. And his ability is very simple. Action, choose and stand a Baratheon location. Limit once per round. So this can allow you to use Dragonstone Castle twice, once in challenges phase, once in standing phase. That's one of the more powerful uses for it that I can see. You could use it to stand the, the northern encampment. It makes northern encampments a little more playable. Not sure if that's really worth it because they're still not that good if you don't draw this guy to use them with. But that's definitely one other decent use for him. But really it's hard for me to think of that many Baratheon locations that are good with this guy. Honestly, he might be worth using as a one of. I don't know, even then. I'm not sure if he's worth it if all he's doing is I'm just using him to stand a Dragonstone port. I don't know. You can't combo him with the Red Keep because the way the Red Keep works, that just doesn't, his ability doesn't affect it. It's not like Night's Watch with the Corset Wall. He doesn't work that way with Chamber of the Painted Table either. I think the problem is, the limitation is just the Baratheon locations. There aren't that many that you can get good value out of by standing them in the middle of a phase like this. So probably not quite worth it, but obviously has a lot of potential if the right couple of locations come along. I guess the Black Cells is a decent argument for him, right? Standing the Black Cells and then reusing them in the middle of the phase could actually potentially be powerful. Anyways, moving on. Shadow of the Throne, the Baratheon Shadow event. So loyal, dash meaning only playable from shadows, and Shadow 1. Action, choose and kneel any number of locations with total printed cost 3 or lower. If there's a Kingdom plot card revealed, return Shadow of the Throne to your hand instead of discarding it. I think this is very solid location control if you want to run it. It just depends on how powerful it is to kneel locations, depending on which locations are prominent in the game. Like back when Fleabottom was in every deck, I think this would have been really good for just kneeling Fleabottom every round. Also, because it's an action, like if you marshal first, you can just bring this out of shadows and kneel a bunch of the opponent's economy before they get to marshal, and that could definitely do some damage. And also the fact that its recursion requirement is super easy. Kingdom plots are very common and very easy to fulfill, both in terms of you running kingdom plots, but also it being like a pretty decent chance that your opponent might have one revealed. So you can easily get it back into your hand and reuse it every turn. So definitely an event that has a lot of potential. We'll see where it ends up going. Next we have the Statue of Baelor. Unique neutral location, 2 cost, King's Landing in the 7. Action, kneel Statue of Baelor and discard 1 power from another character or location you control to stand that character or location. So this is an interesting ability. Since it's neutral, any faction can use it. I think the most obvious use is just standing big powerful characters which have renown, which there are plenty of. So you could just toss this in a Greyjoy deck that runs, let's say, like the 7 cost Euron Crow's Eye, and basically any version of Balon Greyjoy, in either version of Victarion, who both can gain renown. Although with the 7-cost version, it's not very efficient. But you can obviously see the potential there of standing characters like that. I mean, you could put this in Tyrell, which has renown coming out their ears. I think it could be pretty decent. I mean, the requirement to just discard 1 power to stand Renly Baratheon is 100% worth it. So I think this location absolutely has potential, and has broad potential because it's a 2-cost location. So people immediately are going to be like, oh, I'm going to use it in Faith Militant because it's the 7, and you put a power on your 7 character and then discard it using the agenda. I don't think it's actually that good in the Faith Militant because all of the playable the 7 characters are cheap and don't have that high of strength or like powerful challenge abilities really. So standing them is not that useful. Where I think the utility of this will be in standing those big renowned characters with powerful abilities, and Baratheon just use it to stand Robert Baratheon, right? That's pretty nasty. Probably going to see it used to do stuff like that. Now we have the Dragon print. This is a reprint from 1st edition. I'm sad that they reprinted this. I don't understand why they really felt the need to do this. Hopefully it will not make Burn back into a thing. Burn seems to be not very good right now, and I really hope that it would stay that way. So this is a 3-cost loyal Targ location. Each character whose controller controls fewer cards and shadows than you gets -1 strength. And this was a very obnoxious burn card in 1st edition. So hopefully, I don't know, we'll just see. The potential is obvious. It sort of just depends on whether burn is powerful as an archetype or not. Hopefully it's not. The Face Decree, this is a 0-cost loyal event. No, it's not loyal. What am I saying? It's a neutral event. The 7 trait, play only if you control the 7 character or location. Then action, name a non-agenda, non-plot card. Until the end of the phase, each opponent cannot trigger card abilities of cards with that name. So sort of like a Nightmares. I think it's slightly better than Nightmares just because it costs 0. And so it can't affect, it can't affect passive text. Like you can't, it doesn't do anything to, for example, Tywin Lannister. So that's one way that it differs from Nightmares, but it can also affect attachments and events. And so that's something that it has an advantage over Nightmares. And so I think the fact that it costs 0 makes it a little bit better than Nightmares. The problem, of course, is that you have to control a 7 card, and that's probably not really that easy to do outside of the Faith Militant specifically. So I think it's probably playable in the Faith Militant and not really anywhere else, but probably pretty decent in that deck. And I have to say, I do like in this pack, and perhaps in general, but certainly in this pack, I like how I'm seeing them put in cards that are pushing like specific types of decks that aren't played as often, like Conclave or the Faith Militant. That's kind of nice to see. Next we have the Most Devout, a 6-cost, 5-strength, non-unique, the 7 character, no attachments except 7, and reaction. Oh, they are unique. What am I saying? Why did I say they're non-unique? Because they look like they would be non-unique, but they actually are a unique character. And then it has reaction after a character enters play under an opponent's control. If another character entered play under that player's control this phase, the Most Devout gains 1 power. So basically just a card that gets passive power if your opponent marshals more than 1 character per turn. Kind of an interesting card. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I don't think that a 6-cost with this ability and no relevant challenge abilities is really going to be worth it. Maybe in the Faith Militant, just because it's the 7 character. But I'm pretty iffy on that as well, to be honest. I lean towards this not really being worth it, but I guess we'll find out. Also because the opponent can play around it. Like, they can deliberately change how they allocate their gold, seeing that this is in play, so that its ability won't trigger. Which sometimes that will be inconvenient for them to do, but sometimes they might not really mind or care about. So I don't know. I'm leaning towards it not being that good. Unexpected Guile, the last card. A 2-cost loyal Tyrell attachment. Character with shadow you control only. Shadow 1. Attached character gets +2 strength and gains insight, and Forced Interrupt. When a challenge ends in which attached character is participating, return Unexpected Guile and attach character to Shadows. I think this is pretty playable for a dedicated Shadows deck. So we've seen like the Tyrell Banner of the Lion super heavy shadows deck where they literally just don't have any characters in play and they try to only like bounce stuff in and out of play to do challenges as much as possible. It feels like a very slow lame out deck where they'll try to reset you a bunch. And I think this is very playable in that deck because of the ability to send stuff back to shadows. Like you can use this on your Queen of Thorns, right? The 5 cost Queen of Thorns, the one with stealth that has shadow. So you can bring her into play, attach this to her, use her ability after winning a challenge with her, and then put her back into shadows. And that keeps her safe from resets and opponents' card effects and things like that. We've seen the power of a card like Clever Feint, allowing you to put all your stuff back into shadows and then play a reset, and you don't lose your guys, they stay in shadows, and you can keep doing stuff. This card has similar potential. I think it will see play in that type of deck. So yeah, that is the whole pack. That's my thoughts on the cards. A lot of cards that I'm iffy about in this pack. Like there's a lot of them that I'm looking at and I'm just like, it seems, I can see the potential for it, but I'm just not quite sure if it'll make the cut or not. And I like that. I think that's a good sign. When there are cards where I'm not entirely, like, I won't be able to tell how good they really are until I try them, to me that says that it's probably a pretty well designed and well balanced card. And the ones that I see that are obvious includes or cards that will definitely see play, like Maester Mullen and Chiswick, do not feel like overpowered or too strong or like something that's going to make me roll my eyes and not want to play. They're just like regular good characters with very usable abilities, which I think is also good. And we have a couple of the standard unplayable cards, Guard Duty and Outfitted for War, but hey, every pack has its unplayable cards, right? The fact that only 2 of the cards in the pack, I think, qualify as that for me is pretty decent. I mean, out of 20 cards, only 2 that I would really never consider using. I think that's not bad. So yeah, good job, I guess. I think this cycle has been pretty good so far, including the Baratheon box. In terms of balance design, it's been better than the last few expansion boxes in particular. So good job. Cool stuff. See if I can upload a game now.